When 1.2 grams of carbon is burned in a closed vessel with 8 grams of oxygen forming CO2, I'm assuming that all of the carbon is going to be consumed here, what mass of CO2 will be produced, and what, if anything, is left over? So, carbon plus oxygen goes to CO2. And we start with 1.2 grams of carbon. We don't know how much CO2. We know we have 8 grams of O2. Okay. Now, I am assuming from the way this question reads that all of the carbon will be consumed and that there will be oxygen left over. But we're going to have to check that because it's a little bit ambiguous. So what I would suggest that we do is a mass of carbon to moles of CO2 to mass of CO2 to get the mass of CO2. And from the mass of CO2 and the mass of carbon, we could figure out the mass of oxygen. If it's less than 8, then our assumption is correct. So we're going to do 1.20 grams of carbon times 1 mole of carbon per 12.0 grams of carbon times 1 mole of CO2 per 1 mole of carbon times, now I want to do moles of CO2 to mass of CO2. So that takes the molar mass of CO2, which is 12 and 36 is 44, 44.0 grams of CO2 in 1 mole of CO2. Now, you see this madness works. Grams cancel, moles cancel, moles cancel. Our answer is in grams, and I got 4.4 grams of CO2 formed. Okay? 4.40 approximately. All right, now if we take 4.40 grams of CO2 and we subtract the amount of carbon from it, 1.20 grams of carbon, and we get 3.20 grams of oxygen that was used to form CO2. Okay? It must have been because it's there, and that's the only place it could have come from, right? So it's there, and the question has been partly answered. We got this many grams of CO2, and the rest of it says, what if anything's left over? Well, some oxygen's left over, and we find out how much by taking 8 grams that we started with, minus 3.20 grams that we used. And we're going to end up with what? 4.8 grams of O2 left over.